Hey, it's Mary Ellen. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, thanks for stopping by. Today we're going to be updating my reading journal, and sorry this is so late, but it's one of those videos that's harder to film and it just didn't happen until now. So we are going to do July through November, talk about the books that I've been reading, and fill some of this out. I'm also going to be doing a setup video soon for 2025. I'm going to be using this same journal. Like I said last year when I did this, is I kind of want to fill up this whole journal and just go year to year. My instinct is to go to a new fun journal every time, but I don't want to be wasteful, and also I like the idea of a whole complete journal, and I've never actually filled out a whole journal before, so we're just gonna hope that happens. But anyway, the setup video will be coming more toward the new year probably, because that's a big video as well to film. And there's a lot of other setup and lineup videos coming up. December's very busy in the planner community, as we know. So I've gone ahead and printed out the books that I've read since July. I am going to cut these out with my paper trimmer. I already cut around the edges. Basically, all I did was print them out onto sticker paper from Google Docs. If you need advice on how to do this, one of my update videos this year, I think it was maybe the one in the spring, I showed you how to do this. Basically, I just take the pictures off of Amazon and put them right into Google Docs and size them. It's pretty easy. And then I just leave the document there. When I need to update, I just go in and replace the photos. They're already sized for me. So it's a pretty simple process, but, ooh, I did not cut that well. But, yeah, look at that. Oof. Anyway, so you can go back and watch that if you need specific instructions, but it's fun to print out these little book jackets, you know? I find it to be kind of fun. Okay, I'm just going to take my scissors and sort of do the rest of this. So I've read some good books since July, some really ones I loved and some duds, and that will be the way it goes. You know, sometimes you're just going to have books you don't like. I am starting to write the DNF books down here. I didn't do that for the whole year, but I think I find it useful to know which books I did not finish, and I'll talk about those briefly as well. Now, when I talk about these books, it's going to be just a brief summary of the book and how I felt about it, what I liked and didn't like about each book. I had to go back and look up a lot of the books since it's been since July that I've read some of them. And that is my dog, Bumble. There must be a dog outside. So yeah, I had to go back and just familiarize myself with some of these books that I might have forgotten. My goal this year was to do an update video every 3 months, and it happened until this time. Maybe next year I will do like an update every month or two, just so that I can remember the books more readily in my brain. Hold on, I gotta see what my dog is doing. I've had questions before on the kind of printer I use to print these, and I use a Brother Inkvestment, which means it's one of those printers that has the bigger ink cartridges, so that I don't have to replace them hardly ever, maybe like once every year, year and a half. So I like not having to do that, and it prints pretty good quality. I make sure that when I print these, I put it on best quality and not just normal, because when it's on normal, it's going to look a little bit streaky or just a little faded compared to this. All right, we are going to start with The Housemaid is Watching. Let me get out my star stickers. I keep them in this little pocket in the back. By the way, this is an Archer and Olive notebook. It is not available anymore, but they make some really pretty ones. If you use code PWB10 over at Archer and Olive, you will be able to save 10%. And I really recommend their journals. I think they're great. So these came from Amazon. It is a company called Orange Umbrella. And I think these are a great way to just have your stars in there to fill out, you know. I think that Yeah, they're great. What else was I going to say about that? I do not know. But anyway, I'll link these for you. So I'm just going to put these down and talk about them as we go. If you're a fan of Freida McFadden, The Housemaid is Watching is the third book in the Housemaid series. It is a thriller. And why is that sticking up? This book has had kind of mixed reviews. I think most people are sort of disappointed in this third book. I actually really liked it. I did give it 4 stars. I'm not going to say much about this because it is the third book, so I don't really want to give anything away. I happen to love Freida McFadden, and this book, it was very different than the first 2, but I enjoyed it. I had figured something out. Part of the plot I figured out, but not all of it. And I did enjoy this one. It wasn't as good as like the first one, maybe not as good as the second one, but I enjoyed it. Next up is The Other Misses by Mary Kubica. This one was just okay for me, but I feel like some of my reviews are skewed because I listen to a lot of audiobooks. So a lot of these are audiobooks. I'd say from July to November, probably the majority of the books here are audio. I walk the dog every single day. I listen to books while I'm walking, and I listen to books while I'm in the car, all that kind of stuff. And so, or when I'm in the shower, when I'm doing chores. So I do listen to a lot of audiobooks, and I feel like my reviews might be skewed because sometimes what happens is I'll lose track. If I'm doing something and I'm thinking about what I'm doing, I might lose track of what's going on in the book. And then I don't like it as much, right? Sometimes I'll rewind it, and then, I don't know. I feel like I give the audiobooks lower reviews for that reason. And also because it's just harder to retain the information when it is by audio, I think. That's why I try to listen to books that are mostly pretty easy listening ones, like little romances and stuff on audio, but sometimes I do listen to thrillers. Anyway, this one was about Sadie and Will. They are a married couple who moved to a small coastal town, and they go to live with Will's niece because his sister just died. Then lots of stuff happens. Their neighbor gets murdered. The niece is kind of shady, and it's sort of a mystery. It wasn't bad, but it just wasn't as good as I would have liked, but it was still enjoyable enough. The next one was also an audiobook. This is called If He Had Been With Me. This one is by Laura Nowlin. I've never read any of her books. It was like a coming-of-age book, sort of a bittersweet romance type of book. Autumn and Finn are best friends. They grow up together, and then during middle school and high school, they sort of, grow apart. And it's about, what happens to them. And it does have a little bit of a sad aspect to it. It's pretty sad, especially the ending. I'm not going to give anything away, but in the beginning of the book, it kind of foreshadows the ending. So it's not like you're going to be super surprised. I enjoyed it. It was enjoyable enough. It wasn't the best book I'd ever read, but it was good enough, and I found myself wanting to listen to it. I really like coming-of-age books, though, and teenage novels. That's just how I am. I also like watching teenage dramas on TV. In fact, right now I'm rewatching The OC because it's so good. And I don't know why I'm like that. Maybe I still feel like I'm a teenager. I don't know. I just find them really enjoyable and easy reads. The next one was very highly rated online. It's called Look Closer by David Ellis. And as sometimes happens, I don't always love the highly rated books because I'm just, unique that way. And I'm giving this one a 2. I forced myself to finish this. Like, I really did not want to finish it. And usually if I don't, I'll DNF it. But I was about over halfway when I was like, oh, this is dragging on and on. But I wanted to keep going because I wanted to see what happened. So I did finish this book. Anyway, it's a psychological thriller about this couple named Simon and Vicky who seem like really perfect, but it's full of twists and turns. So many twists and turns that I just didn't care at all by the end. You know what I mean? It was just too much information or something. Too much happened. And I think the other reason I didn't like it is because I did not like any of the characters at all. And what I've learned about myself this year, especially since doing these reviews, is that if there are no characters that are likable or that I like at all, I'm not going to like the book. That's just me. I know that's not everybody, but I want to relate to a character in some way or like them at least. And nobody in this book was likable, in my opinion. So I didn't really enjoy this at all. And I know that is an unpopular opinion. I know a lot of people thought that was like so great, just not my thing. The next one, though, Will Dean is becoming one of my favorite authors. This is the second book I've read by him. And this was even more phenomenal, I think, than the first book that I read. I don't know why I like kidnapping stories and like hostage type stories, but I do. And I've talked about this before. I love like them trying to escape. I know it's very dark, but I think at the end they persevere. Like almost every single kidnapping hostage type situation story, the main character gets out, right? So not to give you a spoiler, but it really is pretty obvious in these books that the main character is going to escape. And I love watching that happen. And they're always very tense. Anyway, this one was about human trafficking, which is obviously a very serious and dark subject. It was about a Vietnamese woman who was abducted and held as this man's wife, so to speak. And it's about her story. She gets pregnant and her, figuring out how she's going to escape and all that. I found it so good. His writing is really, really good because it keeps you just wanting more. I found myself not being able to put this one down because I just wanted to see what happened next. Like that's the kind of writing that he does. I just really like this author. And I'm excited to read more books by him. But some of it is very dark, and, this is just a warning. Like, I would look up the trigger warnings if I were you, and also, keep in mind it's that kind of book that is rather disturbing in parts, but also really meaningful. So I enjoyed that one. And I read these two. So these two were actual books. This next one is an audiobook. This was also really, really good. This was called Evie Drake Starts Over by Linda Holmes, and this is the first Linda Holmes book I've ever read. And if I rate an audiobook really high, I think it's really good because, like I said, I think I tend to rate audiobooks lower than, reading books, regular books, whatever. This was a very heartwarming story and sort of a cute little romance with definitely some drama in there as well. It is about Evie, who is a widow, and she has this best friend, Andy, and Andy's friend comes to town. His name is Dean, and he's a washed-up baseball player who can't throw anymore for whatever reason, and he's trying to figure that out, and he's staying in her house because she has an extra room, and it's about their romance. And also, it's about her coming to terms with her grief and all that. So I really did enjoy that one. Okay, so let's talk about my favorite read in July. Whoa, I can't speak, but I think you know what it is, and it is The Last Thing to Burn. I just really, really enjoyed that book. So how did I write these? Oh, I used another kind of pen. Okay. My intention with this space down here was to write a little blurb about them, and I was, but then it looks like the last couple months I did not. I guess I forgot. Okay, so we're going to talk about my DNF book, which was Black Cake. Now, I know this is a very highly acclaimed book. it wasn't the book, I don't think. I think it was me and what I was doing at the time or whatever, but it was an audiobook and I just felt like I couldn't pay attention. Some books I feel like maybe lend themselves more to an actual reading book, and this might have been one of them. I think the writing was really good. I got maybe 30% in. I just found myself, when I was listening to it, like daydreaming or something. Not daydreaming, thinking about other things and not really thinking about the book and losing track of what was going on in the story. But I think it's probably a really good book. It got really good reviews. It's just that I didn't have the patience to listen to it. I think maybe I could go back and read it instead. Let's get into August. We have a very kind of superficial book called Recipe for a Charmed Life. I don't want to say superficial, but very kind of light, This one was okay. It was pretty good. I gave this one 3 stars. I listened to this on audio. It's about a young chef who lives in France who suddenly loses her taste, and everything she tastes is bitter. And she's trying to figure out how to get her taste back. And then she moves back to America because she got a message from her estranged mother, who she hadn't seen since she was a baby or a little girl. And so she goes back to visit her mom, and it's about them reconnecting, and there's a romance in there as well. She falls in love with someone who lives in the same town as her mom. And there's another component of it that's kind of interesting, but I don't want to give anything away, so I'm not going to say anything. It was cute, but it was nothing special in my opinion. I found myself not really caring if I was going to listen to it or not. It was like kind of a chore to get through by the end. So didn't love this one, but it was cute anyway. The next one is an Ellen Hildebrand novel, and I love Ellen Hildebrand. I've read almost all of her novels at this point. And this one's called The 5-Star Weekend. I listened to this on audio, and I'm going to give this one 4 stars. This is also about a widow, a woman named Hollis. Her husband dies, and she's just like struggling and trying to find something to give her some peace or move on with her life. So she read some article where someone had a 5-star weekend where they invited a different person, I guess it was a woman who wrote the article, and it was her women friends throughout her life. So she had invited someone from like grade school, someone from college, someone from a job she used to have, and like all throughout her life. And Hollis decided to do it. Hollis, I think, is maybe in her 50s or something, which is another reason why I like Ellen Hildebrand books, because they are older characters, and I am 57, so it makes sense to me to enjoy books with older characters because there's not that many of them. Most books have characters in like their 20s, 30s, sometimes 40s, but it's kind of rare, so I enjoy that. Anyway, it's all about that 5-star weekend and everything that happens. And each of the women who comes to spend that weekend with Hollis has their own story, like their own backstory. So you kind of learn about those characters and their family dynamics and all that. So I enjoyed it. The next one, okay. So I tried to read a fantasy novel because I have a page back in the beginning of this. And book bingo, fantasy. And I wanted to check it off, and I wanted to try something new. Maybe I chose the wrong book. I did read this and not listen to it. It's called A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas, and it is ACOTAR to those who love it. So when the book started, I kind of was into it. The first few chapters I thought were pretty interesting. But the longer it went on, the more I just couldn't get into it. I don't really know why. It's a dark romantic fantasy about a girl who is a human, and she ends up like in the fairy world. And I don't really want to say too much about it, but there's danger, there's action, there's romance, but I just, for whatever reason, just couldn't get into it. I also really did not like the main character that much, and that could be, again, why. She's very tough, she's like a tough girl. She's had a hard life, and it's caused her to develop like this tough exterior. And I don't know, I couldn't relate to her, and I think the whole descriptive part in the beginning was interesting, but then the more it went on, the more I just lost interest, and I was forcing myself to get through it. I almost did not finish it, but I forced myself. And what I did at the end was I switched to audiobook, like the last 25% of the book. I switched over to audio because I thought that would be easier to finish. The reason there's a lot of audiobooks coming up and like here is that I was working on this for so long and I just couldn't get through it. I feel like people either love this or hate it. If you have a better suggestion for me to get into fantasy, let me know in the comments. Like if there's a book that might be better for me. I've heard Fourth Wing is really good, but I also heard that that's hard to start with and you should start with this. And I just didn't really enjoy it. But again, sometimes I don't love popular books, so I'm not trying to discourage anyone from reading it because my tastes might certainly be very different from your tastes. Okay, the next one is called Forever Interrupted, and it is by one of my favorite authors, Taylor Jenkins Reid. I listened to this on audio. This is another book about a widow. I don't know, I am a widow, but I didn't really purposely seek out widow books. It just so happened that I kind of started reading some of them this year. This is about a woman named Elsie whose husband gets killed when he takes his bike to the store. He gets hit by a car, and they were only married for 9 days. She hadn't met his mother yet, and she actually met his mother in the hospital. It turns out she didn't even know they were married, and his mother is like this very gruff woman who, basically speaks her mind, and so immediately there's this clash between the two of them. But what it does is flips back and forth between the present day where Elsie is trying to grieve her husband and deal with this mother, and then the past where it takes their romance from when they met all the way until he was killed. So like every chapter flip-flops, I think. I found it very enjoyable. I found it very meaningful, relatable for me, but I just really enjoy Taylor Jenkins Reid's writing. I think she's a very good writer, and there really aren't too many books that I've read by her that I didn't really resonate with or didn't like, so I think that was pretty good. And okay, so my favorite read in August, these were both good. I wouldn't say these were like fantastic reads or anything like that. I am going to go with Forever Interrupted because it had a little more meaning to me, and I feel like the writing, I think Taylor Jenkins Reid is probably, I don't want to say a better writer because they just have different styles, but I think I don't know what I'm trying to say? I don't really know the words. I don't want to insult Ellen Hildebrand because I certainly love her books. I just feel like her writing is just a tiny bit, it's just more rich or something. It's just better, in my opinion. So that was my favorite in August. Oh, I also have one DNF, Small Great Things. Now this is another one sort of like this because I was, enjoying it, but I kept losing my train of thought. I don't know if I was just daydreaming a lot in July and August or what, but I kept losing my train of thought. These two books are pretty deep books. So I think what I've learned is I probably shouldn't listen to very deep books on audio. This was by Jodi Picoult. I don't know how to say her name. Picoult? I don't know. Anyway, and it was about like racism, and I found it really interesting in the beginning, but I just kept losing track. I do want to go back and finish that book though. The problem is when I go back and finish, I'm probably going to have to like read the whole thing over again, but I was enjoying it. I actually forget exactly like the plot, but it had some deep meaning behind it. Now we're into September. Obviously, I wasn't reading much in September. I think because I was pretty sick in September. I had COVID for a week and a half or so. I was watching a lot of TV. And then I was sick another week, a couple weeks after COVID. I also had that eye problem that started in September. So I was just kind of watching a lot of TikToks, watching a lot of TV, and just not really into the books in September. But I did listen to 2 and read 1. So The Overnight Guest is the first one. This is by Heather Gudenkauf. I really enjoyed this book. And this was one on audio. You know, I rated it a 5, but thinking about the book now and comparing it to All the Little Raindrops, I feel like I was more excited to pick this book up than I was to pick this book up. So should I have rated this a 4 and this a 5? Or should they both be 4s? Or should they both be 5s? I don't really know. But I did go back and look at Goodreads, and I rated that one a 5. So who knows? I think what I'm going to do is change this one to a 5. I have a reasoning behind the 4, but all right. Well, I thought this was good. It was a thriller about a writer who was trapped in a snowstorm. Actually, now that I'm thinking about this book, I am going to give it a 4. I liked it. I'm not sure why I gave it a 5. 5s should be reserved for just books that I'm like, oh, I can't wait to read that, you know? Yeah, I don't think this deserves a 5, but it definitely deserves a 4. It was a good book. So anyway, it's about this woman who's a writer. She went to this house to write a novel, like a thriller, or she was a true crime author. That's what it was. I can't really say much about this book because it's going to give away a lot. There's a lot of surprises in this book. I did figure out like one of the main twists, but I didn't figure it out until about 75% through the book. So, I mean, I don't know, but there were definitely some twists and turns. She finds a child outside in the snow, takes the child in, and then a lot of stuff happens from there. So again, I really don't want to give anything away. I have a hard time reviewing books in general, but especially thriller books, because I feel like I'm going to give something away, and I never want to do that. So we're going to go right into All the Little Raindrops by Mia Sheridan. So what I will say about this book is about 75% of the book was a 5-star for me. I mean, I loved it in the beginning. Like the first half of the book, I loved. But I felt like the ending, and I don't even remember as I'm saying this what happened in the end, but I remember being disappointed in the ending, or some weird things happen in the ending where I thought it was unbelievable, I think, or something like that. But most of the book was very enjoyable. It's just that's why I gave it 4. I would have given it a 5. Now, warning, this book is very dark. In fact, out of all the books I've talked about so far, this one is probably, why did I put the stars like that? Probably the darkest. In the beginning parts, because it's about, again, an abduction. I don't know why I keep reading these abduction books, but it's about these 2 teens who were abducted and tortured. Like they were kept in cages. Like it was some scary, dark stuff. So if you're not a fan of that kind of thing, do not pick this book up because it was pretty disturbing in parts. But the surprising part of this was that, like, I thought the whole book was going to be about that and that they would escape at the end. But the surprising part of this book is most of the book takes place years later, and I didn't realize that. So these teens, Evan and Noelle, they went to the same high school. Evan's dad killed Noelle's mom, so she obviously hated him. They did not get along. They weren't in the same groups. Sorry about the dog. Oh my gosh. And they try to figure out why were they both kidnapped and thrown together like that there must be some hidden motive, you know. And so anyway, the whole book it takes them through the years. And I don't want to give anything else away, so I'm not going to say anything, but it was really, really good. The Golden Couple by Greer Hendricks was just so, in my opinion. I did listen to this on audio. So, I mean, it was enough to give 3 stars, but it wasn't all that. You know what I mean? So this was about a wealthy couple who seek therapy from this unconventional counselor. There's a lot of twists and turns in this book, but it's one of those books where it just got to be sort of long and convoluted, and by the end of the book, I really did not care. I just wanted the book to be finished. Like, I didn't care, like, really what happened to everybody in the book. So, and again, nobody was likable in this book, in my opinion. So that could be why I didn't like it. I'm going to say that my favorite book for September was 𝘮𝘮 Raindrops. And I would have said this because it was a 5, but, you know, we changed that. Because I think the majority of the book was very, very enjoyable. And I liked the characters and everything. So I just wish the ending had been different, that's all. In October, I read 5 books, none of which were 5 stars. The first book was a 2-star, and this was Freida McFadden. I've never given Freida McFadden book a 2-star rating before, but here we are. This was actually a short story. It was a little thriller. It was a Christmas thriller. It was about a married woman, and her husband were pretty poor, and she couldn't afford a Christmas gift for him. So she goes to kind of an unconventional way of getting him a gift. And that's all I want to say about that. But it was predictable. It felt amateurish, and it was unbelievable. Like, I say it was predictable and unbelievable, and that doesn't really make sense, but in a way it does. Everything that she went through and did and everything, I found it all to be very far-fetched. You know what I mean? Like, to the point where I'm like, no way would anyone do that. No way would anyone say that. And that just made it hard to like the book. I certainly didn't like the main character. So definitely don't waste your time on that one. I didn't think it was good. It's very hard for me to give a 1-star rating. I guess I have given 1-star ratings before, but it's very rare for me to give those because I feel like if I'm reading the whole book through, then I probably like it enough to continue. And I feel like a 1-star rating would probably be a DNF for me. So that's why I don't give a lot of 1 stars. It was enjoyable enough that I wanted to see what happened, but that's really it. Okay, the next one, though, by Freida McFadden is The Boyfriend. This is her newest book. I read this one on audio. And I actually listened to this when I was in Savannah, Georgia. A lot of the time that I was in Georgia, I listened to this one when I had downtime. This followed a woman named Sydney who was trying to find, the love of her life. She's dating, and she meets this one guy who she really falls for, and then her best friend is murdered, and it's all, I can't really say much more than that, but it's all very much a mystery. Now, I will say, most Freida McFadden books, I cannot figure out the twist, and I'm very shocked every time. This time I figured it out. But part of the twist I did not figure out. I thought this one person was actually another person, and I don't really want to say anything else. But I did figure one of the twists out. That's why I guess I didn't give it a 5-star, because I wasn't super shocked. But it was pretty interesting, and it kept my attention, and it was entertaining. So not the best Freida McFadden book I've ever read, but still pretty good. This is another Freida McFadden book called The Devil Wears Scrubs. And this one is not a thriller. I think Freida McFadden, I think, is a surgeon or something. She started out in healthcare in some capacity, I forget. But when she started writing these medical books. This was it was cute. It kept my attention, but it was a lot of medical stuff. So it followed a new doctor who just started working at a hospital, and, her dealing with her difficult coworkers and stuff. And there's some romance in there, but it just, it was okay. I think a lot of it was taken up with details of like record keeping and all that kind of stuff. So if you don't like that kind of thing, or like specific cases and stuff like that, then you probably won't like it. It felt sort of like Grey's Anatomy-ish, So, it was pretty good. The Rom-Commers is next by Catherine Senner. I don't know why I gave this one 3 stars. I feel like that's wrong. I'm going to pause and look this up because I feel like I gave that 4 stars. Maybe I wrote it down wrong. Hang on a sec. Okay, I was wrong. I did give it 4 stars. Because I was thinking about that. I thought, that's a good book. Why would I give it 3? So this is Catherine Senner's newest book. I'm a big fan of Catherine Senner's writing. I really enjoy her books. And they're usually like romances with definitely some deeper meaning behind them. Sort of like Abby Jimenez, but maybe a little bit deeper. I always really enjoy her books. This one was about Emma, who is a writer, and she takes care of her sick father. I forget what he has, but he's in a wheelchair. All of a sudden, she gets the chance to go write with her favorite screenwriter in Hollywood named Charlie. And she had never met him, and she was a big fan of his. And she couldn't decide whether to go or not because she needs to take care of her dad. But ultimately, her sister and her dad pushed her to go, and her sister took over her dad's care. So she goes out to Hollywood. She meets this guy, Charlie, and she's enamored by him. But he's a real ass. He's like a real smart ass. He's like a pain, and he doesn't want her there at all. And it's sort of an enemies to lovers trope because obviously they fall in love. So it's about their love story, but also the deeper story of her mom's death, her dad's illness, and the backstory with that, and some of the guilt she feels about all of that. And so it was really meaningful, and I enjoyed this one. The True Love Experiment I listened to on audio. This is by Christina Lauren. I do enjoy Christina Lauren's books, their books, I should say. They're 2 authors, which I just found out a little while ago. I do usually enjoy their books, but I don't always love them, though. It just depends on the book. This one was pretty good. This is about a romance author named Fizzy, and this was actually, Fizzy was another character in one of her other books that I had read. Anyway, Fizzy goes on this reality dating show, and the producer of the show, Connor, he doesn't want to produce this show because he's a documentary producer and he thinks this is frivolous and stupid, but he does it anyway because he's pretty much told that he needs to for ratings and stuff. So Fizzy goes on this show. She meets all of these eligible bachelors and she's supposed to pick one, but she falls in love with Connor, the producer. It just went on a little too long, I thought. It was a little too descriptive with the show and everything. I usually like those kind of reality show ones, but this was just all right for me. I'm going to say my favorite book in October was The Rom-Commers, and that's one I read on Kindle. Okay, last month here, we're into November. We're going to go right into a 5-star read, Remarkably Bright Creatures. I resisted this book for so long. It's extremely popular. I resisted it because one of the main characters is an octopus, and that's just weird. You know what I mean? I didn't think I'd like it. This is a good book because I listened to it on audio and I gave it 5 stars. Anyway, this is another book about a widow. She is older. She's, I think, like 70 or so, or maybe in her early 70s. And she also lost her son years ago. And I actually didn't know that about this book when I picked it up or when I started listening to it. I didn't know that she was a widow. I also didn't know that she lost her son. And I will say, I almost stopped listening to it because that is a little bit of a trigger for me. Because I also lost my son and my husband. I wasn't sure I was going to be able to listen to it, but I kept going. And I'm glad I did. I can't remember her name. But anyway, she works at an aquarium and she forms this bond with the octopus. The point of view switches back and forth, and sometimes it's the octopus talking and it's his point of view. And you really do kind of fall in love with this guy. And I know that sounds weird, but you kind of do. So this story was very heartwarming. There's a lot more to it than that. Obviously, there's other characters involved, but it sort of tells the story of her trying to find her way as an older woman who is alone. And I found that actually kind of relatable, even though I'm 57 and I have kids. You know, she doesn't have any other kids or anything. But I liked her. I liked the octopus. So wait, this isn't the right one. Wait. So yeah, I really recommend that book. The next book is by 𝘭𝑒 Jimenez, and as I said before, I really enjoy her books. She's one of my favorite authors. This one's called Life's Too Short. This book is actually about a YouTuber, which I found kind of interesting since I'm a YouTuber. But the YouTuber in this book is very famous. Like, I'm nowhere near the caliber that she is. Her name's Vanessa. She's this star, but she has a dysfunctional family. She ends up taking care of her sister's baby. Her sister's an addict. Her mom passed away years ago. Her dad is a hoarder. Her brother's kind of out of the picture. So there's just a lot going on with her family. And this guy, Adrian, lives in her building. He's a lawyer, and he's kind of like stuffy, kind of serious. And she's very much not. She's like adventurous and fun and funny. And so she sort of like meets Adrian and sort of brings him out of his shell, and they fall in love. But they really become best friends, and it's a friends to lovers kind of trope. And it was a really cute book. I enjoyed it a lot. And like I said, 𝘭𝑒 Jimenez, her books usually have a lot of meaning behind them as well. And so this one, obviously, you know, some of it was about Vanessa's family and how she compensates for feelings about her family, all of that. And it was very enjoyable. The next one is called Practice Makes Perfect, and this is part of the When in Rome series by Sarah Adams. I had never read any of her books before. I read this on audio. And now there's sirens going, so my dog is going to bark. I really do apologize, but I keep pausing, and I just want to not keep pausing. If it gets real bad, I'll stop. So this is a 4-star read. This is a sweet little small town romance. It's about a shy florist and her sister-in-law's bodyguard. Annie is very naive and very, very shy, and she's never had a real boyfriend before, and she starts dating. Anyway, so this bodyguard, Will, he wants nothing to do with love. He grew up in a family where his parents went through a rough divorce. They fought all the time, and he just does not believe in love. And so he constantly dates these women and just has situationships or whatever. But then he meets Annie, and he tries to teach her how to date. And it's, you know, the story about how they fall in love. I found it to be very enjoyable. I liked Sarah Adams' writing style. So actually now in December, I'm currently reading actually the first of this series. I kind of went back, and you can kind of, if you're reading series like this, you can usually flip back and forth because, in fact, Life's Too Short is part of a series as well. The only thing that really makes it a series is that there's supporting characters from other books that then have their, whole story in a separate book. So this one, Annie's brother is the main character, like in the first one that I'm reading now. So it's not like you really have to read them in order, but I guess maybe it's recommended. Anyway, we're moving on to Love Light Farms, and this was a 4-star read, another 4-star. And this one I listened to on audio. This was a really cute little story. This one was like a fake dating romance, you know what I mean? So this woman, and now, of course, I just read this, and I can't remember the characters' names, of course, because I never can, and I didn't write it down, but she owns a Christmas tree farm, and she has this best friend who's a guy, and they've been friends for like 10 years. And she wants to win this contest with this influencer that she likes. She's having a contest to pick the best Christmas tree farm, I don't know, on the East Coast or something, and she can win $100,000 because her farm is like going to go out of business if she doesn't get this money. So when she applies to this contest, she thinks she has a better chance of winning if she says that she bought the farm with her boyfriend, that she owns the farm with her boyfriend, because it felt more heartwarming. So she creates this fake boyfriend, and then she finds out she's a finalist, and then they're going to come out to see it. The influencer's coming out to see it, so she has to then find a fake boyfriend. So she asks her best friend to be her fake boyfriend. And it's a friends to lovers type of book. But it was very cute, and it's a good like book to read around Christmas time, because there is like a little Christmas vibe because it's a Christmas tree farm. Very cute story, and this is actually a series. I think this is the first of the series, and I will be looking for more in that series. Okay, the last book we're going to talk about is called Everyone is Watching, and I listened to this on audio. This is another Heather 𝘠𝘗 book, and I didn't like it as much as I liked the other one that I read by her. But it was an audiobook, and I feel like I kept losing track a little bit, so that could be why. This one was about a reality show. It was called One Lucky Winner, and the contestants on the show were each invited personally, and each of them had this sort of dark secret, and the secrets come out as the book goes on. And it's also about like the woman who is in charge of the show, the main, I guess she's the producer of the show, and like her assistant. And I really can't say much. It's sort of a thriller, but I found that at the end I didn't care anymore, and it just kind of fell flat for me. I mean, it was interesting. I'd say the first half I was really invested in, and then it was just like, okay, let's wrap this up kind of feeling. I'm going to give my favorite book from in November to Remarkably Bright Creatures. My goal for 2024 was 75 books, and I don't know if I'm going to hit that. Currently, I am reading, like I said, the first book of this one on audio, and I'm also reading The Women by Kristen Hanna, which is really good, but I've just been in this funk where at night I watch too much TikTok and I'm not reading enough, so it's taken me a while to get through The Women. I've been reading that for a while, but it's not because it's a bad book. I love Kristen Hanna books, I've discovered this year. So I don't know if I'm going to get to my 75, but I think I'm pretty close. I'm going to count the ones that are in here already. Okay, I just counted. I'm at 66 books so far, so I really don't think I'm going to get to 75, which is okay. It's nice to set a goal. This is more books than I read last year. I think last year was like 55. I don't ever want to get to the point where I'm just trying to get the books read in order to read that many books. Like, reading should be enjoyable, and I don't want it to become this contest with myself. This amount of books is a lot for me, and unless after I retire I read more, I can't really see me going much past 75 ever. So probably my goal for 2025 will also be 75 books, but I'm not going to push myself to get it done. So we'll see what happens. Let's go back and fill out some of these other pages now. So let's see. We can do some book bingo, and we can cross off multiple authors because of Christina Lauren. I forgot that earlier in the year. You guys actually reminded me of that in the comments. A book about sports. I'm going to say that romance where there was that baseball player. I'm going to call that about sports because there was baseball in there. They had a couple baseball games and things, so I'm calling that one about sports. Sci-fi, I still have not read. LGBTQ, no. Wait, have I? I don't think so. I don't think so. Horror, did I read any horror books this year? I don't think I've read any of those this year either. I used to read horror all the time. Over 500 pages. The Nightingale that I read earlier in the year was over 500 pages. I don't know why I didn't cross it off. Fantasy, yes, I did it. One word title. I don't think so. I mean, can I count the as not a word? I don't think so. I think I still have to count that, right? So I'd say probably no. But I did get bingo, bingo, bingo. Oh, wait, a book about Christmas. I didn't see that one. And that is bingo. And then bingo this way. I got a bunch of bingos. I really only needed the LGBTQ, the sci-fi, and the one word title, and horror. So I'm doing pretty good with my book bingo. Let's check off some of the books from my favorite authors. The rom-commers. Taylor Jenkins Reid, Forever Interrupted. I'm only down to Carrie Soto is Back. Let me know in the comments if that's worth reading. I know Carrie Soto was a character in, I believe, Malibu Rising, but I know there's a lot of tennis in this book, and it just sounded boring to me. Let me know if that's a good one to read, because then I can cross all of those off. Oh, wait, after I do. Didn't I read that? I'm going to have to go back and look at that one. Maybe that's a short story. I don't know. Abby Jimenez, Life's Too Short. Frida McFadden, The Gift, Devil Wears Scrubs. I feel like I read The X. I wonder, hang on, I'm gonna look that one up. Okay, I thought I read that one, but I guess I have not. Oh, The Teacher I read, and The Housemaid is Watching. So I've read a lot of her books, definitely. Word D I crossed off because I looked up the trigger warnings and I just feel like I can't read that book. Since I've had a lot of sort of trauma, I actually have to look up trigger warnings now. I never used to have to do that ever, but now certain things I just don't want to read about. And there was something in that book I just didn't feel like I should read it. It looks like I didn't cross off some of these last time, so I did read It Starts With Us. And then there's more. I did another page back here, I think, of favorite authors, and I have more to do. I did The True Love Experiment. We're going to go back to our book bracket now. This is the fun part. So let's look at the books I read in July, or find the best book in July, which was The Last Thing to Burn. Whatever I choose has to compete against The Nightingale, whatever this bracket comes down to. And that so far is my favorite book of the year. So I don't think I'm going to beat that, but we'll see, because I'm still reading The Women, and that's really good so far too. August was Forever Interrupted. September, All the Little Raindrops. October was The Rom-Commers. And November, Remarkably Bright Creatures. I guess what I'll do is probably just finish up December when I do this setup video for 2025, just because I don't know if I'm going to have time to film another December video, and maybe I will actually, because then we'll see how it goes. Because there's some pages I do have to finish up, like this page and stuff. I don't know. We'll see. Okay, the favorite of these is going to be The Last Thing to Burn. The favorite of these two, I think I'm giving it All the Little Raindrops, even though the ending was not good. I'm still not positive, but either way, neither of these is going to come into the play here, so we're all right. I can't do November and December yet, but this is definitely going to be The Last Thing to Burn. And this one we're going to have to wait until I finish this part. Oh yeah, I also have a top 10 page to fill out later too. I'm gonna check a couple of these off, or just one actually. And I never really kept up with this. So you're gonna see when I do the setup video for 2025 that some of these pages are gonna change. And I knew that was gonna happen because I've never actually had a reading journal before. So you sort of learn as you go the pages that you're gonna need. And I know that this is a really useful page to have, but I also use Goodreads and I keep track of the ones I want to read on there. So I don't know that I need this page. Oh, we didn't do the A to Z challenge. Let's check that out. We need C's and D's. Let's see. Can we, I guess A Court of Thorns and Roses would count, although that could be A. D is The Devil Wears Scrubs. And you know what? Since I don't count the word the, I'm not going to count the word a either. You know what I mean? So I'm going to put ACOTAR, even though ACOTAR starts with A, but A Court of Thorns and Roses, really, I'm going to put it here. And you know what? I can make up my own rules because it's my reading journal, so it doesn't really matter anyway. So we're looking for G's and K's now. The Gift, The Golden Couple. I'm going to put The Golden Couple since it's longer. It'll fit better on here. Look better anyway. There are no K's. Wah wah. P, U, V, and W. Practice makes perfect. No U, V's, or W's, but I am reading The Women, so that will go there. So yeah, I finished a lot of these actually. And then the other page that I fill out is this one, but I'm slacking on this. So I'm going to color this on my own time. And I've been writing in the titles. Now I feel like next time I'm not going to do that. I'm going to make this easier on myself because I tend to not want to do it and then I put it off. So I feel like either we don't need this page or we need another way to do it. So I'm going to figure that out for the new year. And okay, that's it. That is all my books from July through November. Let me know in the comments if there are, first of all, let me know if there's any books that you've read that you think I'll like based on the things that I like, because I think by now, if you've been watching these reading journal videos, you probably have a pretty good idea of my taste in books. So let me know if there's anything you think I should read. And also let me know if you've read any of the books that I talked about today and what you thought about them. Because I always like to hear different points of view because my 2-star might be your 5-star. And it really is just such a personal decision, a personal preference. And that's what makes us all really cool, is that we all have different preferences and different likes and dislikes. That's all I have for you today. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and all that stuff that I always forget to say. And I'll see you in my next video. Bye.